Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our first free webinar of 2025. So, January 2025 free webinar of paid diagnostic review and unlocking profitable QBO cleanups. I'm so excited that you're joining me today. And if you can, let me know in the chat if you can see and hear me. And actually, let me know where you're joining from and how is the weather where you are, because we have snow here in the Houston area, which is very rare. So I'm bundled up and layered. I got my layers on. So let me know if you can hear me. Let me know where you're joining from. What's the weather like where you are? And let me know in the chat. So Kristen says she's in sunny and beautiful Arizona. I wish it was sunny here. So hello, Jody. The chat goes goes by fast rather, and then I can't really see what it says. So we have Holly from Portland. It's cold, clear, and dry. Kim from Canada, Langley, British Columbia, Canada, and no snow in Canada. How is it that there's no snow in where you are in Canada, but there's snow in South Texas? I don't know how that happens. We have Stephanie from Houston. She's also enjoying the snow. Janine from Southern California. Dinah from Oregon, sunny and cold. Hannah from Spring, Texas, also snow in Spring, Texas. Jeff from Raleigh, coldest Michigan. So it's cold there too. Let's see. Bridget from Frisco, Texas, sunny and cold there. I see my friend Jeff. Hello, Jeff. He's from North Carolina. So lots of you joining. Jamie from Utah. Hello, Stephanie Womack. It's cold and icy in Windsor, Connecticut. Yeah, we don't know what to do here with cold and icy or snowy. We're just all at home and everything shuts down because we don't know what to do. Let's see. Yasmin from New York. It's very cold there. Elizabeth from Beaumont. They got lots of snow in Beaumont too. Yeah, I think you guys are getting even more snow than we are in this part of Texas. Tom from Kansas City. Leslie from Sayulita, Mexico. I think I'm saying that correctly. Welcome. Sandy from Iowa, Todd from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I think you guys are even getting even more snow there. And Munish from Toronto. So thank you, everyone, for joining me today. And again, this is the first free webinar of 2025, paid diagnostic reviews, unlocking QBO or unlocking profitable QBO cleanups. So as I said, we have snow here in these parts, which this might seem kind of naive for some of you from cold parts of the country or the world, but I've never seen this much snow here. I've never seen snow on the road. So that tells you about how little snow we get here. And I think the last time we got snow might have been 20 years ago. So honestly, we don't know what to do. So we're all home, and I'm just glad that we have electricity and that I can do this webinar with you. And let me see, what else did I want to share with you? I'm going to go back to the presentation. I think I have another picture, but I'll show you that in a moment. All right. So I'm just going to do a quick intro in case you don't know a whole lot about me. Maybe you just found me on social media and are joining us for the first time. So my name is Veronica Wasek. I am the unstoppable introvert. I founded 5MB Academy for Virtual Bookkeepers, where I empower virtual bookkeepers to build a business and life of their dreams. I also founded the 5-Minute Bookkeeping YouTube channel and website. And I'm the founder of the Facebook group called 5-Minute Bookkeeping Community. I live in Sugar Land, Texas, right outside of Houston. And as I said, it is snowing here, which is very rare. And you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, etc. at 5-Minute Bookkeeping if you would like to follow me. So I always like to tell you about my beautiful farm that my husband and I purchased a few years ago. And we are moving soon to our farm. We're building a house there, but it's a beautiful farm in South Central Texas in a town called Hallettsville. And our house is I feel like we're like 80% there. I'll show you a picture of our kitchen. So it's coming along. We have electricity now, so we're very excited about that. And so it feels so close yet so far away. But I think in the hopefully next couple of months, we will be moving when the house is done. So that's super exciting. And just, I know some of you kind of keep up with what's going on in my life, especially with our house. I'm having to be very, very patient. It's very hard for me. I love to plan ahead. I can't plan anything. I thought by now we would have been moved in, and that's not happening. So just taking it one day at a time. And thank you for some of you that are saying congratulations, and I appreciate that. And this is really part of the dreams that we can make happen when we have that vision for something greater in our lives. And that's certainly what happened with me. I really didn't have very big dreams at all. And, 15 years ago, just thought I'm just going to build this bookkeeping business. I don't know what to do. I'll just, kind of try to build something here. And I thought, well, I'm just going to do this by myself and just see if I can kind of scrape together enough clients where I can just replace my previous income that I had. And little did I know that it would become this a thriving bookkeeping firm, nationally known, award-winning firm with 6 employees working with e-commerce clients throughout the country. Actually, that to add to my story, I just recently sold Maven C, my bookkeeping business, to 2 of my key employees. And I'm very excited about that. So that was 15 years later from starting the business, going through figuring out all the things by myself, adding team members, scaling, growing, the wins, the losses, the aches and the pains that went along with it. And just recently sold the bookkeeping firm to, as I said, 2 of my key employees. And I'm so proud, so excited for them. And but I will continue with 5-minute bookkeeping, 5MB Academy, all of my videos, my content. So no worries, none of that is going away. I'm just not running a bookkeeping firm anymore. And we'll talk about some of the things that helped me to get to that level of success and to eventually be able to sell the farm. So let's go back to the slides so I can stay on track. So just some administrative announcements. So all content handouts, and give me 1 second to close this. Okay, all content handouts recordings are under copyright. You may not record this webinar. We do give you handouts, so you'll find those in your webinar tab for handouts. If not, no worries. We will send the link to the handout as well as recording of this session or this webinar after the webinar. Usually within 24 hours, we will send a recording of the webinar and a link to the handout. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A tab. So I will then look at the Q&A tab after our my presentation and go over your questions and try to answer as many questions as I can. If you want to just chat amongst yourselves, then use the chat. But if you have a question for me, put it in the Q&A. And today, joining me today is Jill Keel. She is my assistant. So she will be in the background. She may share links and maybe move you. If you accidentally put a question in the chat, she's going to move it to the Q&A. And so you might see her in the chat, and that is Jill. What's our agenda today? We'll talk about how to get paid for diagnostic reviews, the diagnostic review process, and cleanup pricing strategies. So let's define what is a cleanup, because I always like to define what I teach, and there's sometimes confusion as to what a cleanup is. So cleanup is really when you're working with a client who has attempted to do their bookkeeping, and let's say we're using QuickBooks, and I will use QuickBooks and say QuickBooks throughout the presentation. You may be using another software, but I will just call it QuickBooks. Okay, so they're on QuickBooks. They tried to do something on their QuickBooks, and they ended up with really messy and incomplete books. So they attempted to use them, maybe screwed it up, maybe gave up at some point. So they're coming to you already with having attempted to do their bookkeeping. So you will review their books, catch them up, fix whatever's wrong with the books, and reconcile everything. And the end result is for us to then provide the client with complete, accurate, and tax-ready financials. And a cleanup in QuickBooks must be done at a transactional level. So if you maybe have worked in the past for accounting firms where maybe you made a whole bunch of journal entries, and I come from that kind of background of we're just going to make journal entries and try to fix everything. Well, journal entries don't always work well in QuickBooks, and you really need to fix things at a transactional level. So that is what complete and accurate means. And tax ready, meaning that the tax preparer is ready to, they will take the books from you, maybe make a couple of adjustments, but not have to do any sort of cleanup when they prepare the tax return for your client. But there are a lot of challenges when we do cleanup work, and especially as a new bookkeeper, that you may have learned bookkeeping, but you may not really have been prepared to take on a cleanup situation, because we can all do things, in a perfect world, we can set up the chart of accounts and do the bookkeeping, the reconciliations, everything's good. But most of the time, the clients who are coming to us have attempted to do something in their books and have messed them up. And so again, lots of challenges. We're not getting paid to diagnose the books ahead of time. Usually when a cleanup client comes to us, we have no idea what's wrong with the books. We have no idea how to price a cleanup. We may price that cleanup by the hour, and then the client gets sticker shock when they get your invoice, which has happened to me in the past, happened to me quite a bit when I started doing cleanups. Or I would mark down the invoice, thinking like, no, they're not going to pay that, but I'll mark it down. And then you end up sometimes invoicing 25% of what you should have invoiced just because of your insecurity over like, wow, that's a lot of money. They're not going to pay me all that money. And then the client doesn't want to pay you either. So, they get sticker shock. There's no agreement with the client on a desired outcome. And the client usually tries to control the process of where they'll say, well, everything's messed up for prior years, but don't touch any of that. I just want you to do this year. Well, that doesn't always work. And the client is not really qualified to tell you what to do with their cleanup, because the reason they got in the mess to begin with of why their books are messed up is because they didn't know what to do. So again, lots of challenges when we're doing cleanups. And here's another challenge that I had. I was giving work away for free, because when I started doing cleanups, I would get these clients that would come to me, and I would say, okay, well, I need to give you some pricing for your cleanup, give me access to your QuickBooks, and then I will go through and I will review and tell you what's wrong with your books. So I would spend, 2 to 5 hours reviewing a client's bookkeeping and giving them an exact list of everything that was wrong with their books. And then I would give them pricing for the cleanup, and they would just say, no, I didn't want to pay that. No, thank you. And they would walk away. But they walked away with my list that I gave them of everything that was wrong with their books. So after doing that a couple of times, I thought, you know what? I need to start charging for this service. I need to start charging for diagnosing their books, because number one, my time is valuable, my expertise is valuable, and number two, a client who's willing to pay for the diagnostic review would probably be a better client for me than one that, I don't even know if they want to pay anything. So that's how I started developing a system for doing paid diagnostic reviews. Now, remember when I said what were some of the keys to the success that I saw in my own bookkeeping firm and really being able to sell it after 15 years? Part of that success was creating systems and processes and standardizing how we did things. And I would say part of that success is really the bulk of the success is from standardizing how we do things. So this is one of the things that I started with was the paid diagnostic review of having a standard process for reviewing my prospective clients' books before I ever did a cleanup. And this is really what then drove everything else. Everything else that happened after the fact happened because I set up a process that worked, and then I started setting up other processes that worked. So what is the goal of the paid diagnostic review? The first goal is to get a full scope of work, meaning, knowing what it is we need to do. Okay, that's what scope of work means. So get a full scope of work before you clean up or catch up the books. Okay, so think of it as if you're a doctor, you need to diagnose the patient. If you're a mechanic, you need to look under the hood and run a diagnostic before you go into fixing whatever is wrong with the vehicle, for example. The second goal is to get paid to assess the books. So we're not going to be giving all this work away for free. We're going to get paid to do it. So what is the diagnostic review? So number one, it is a paid project. You diagnose problems and assess the level of cleanup needed. You get a clear scope of work. You assess the health of the client's QuickBooks data. You identify transactions that need to be brought up to date. And then you can sell or offer additional work because this really gets the client on a journey with you of we're going to do the diagnostic first. Next, we will do the cleanup. Next, we'll do monthly bookkeeping services. So it really starts a relationship with a client, with the right clients in the right way. So what is the value of doing the diagnostic review? So I'll start from the top and go clockwise here. Learn what the client is like to work with. Sometimes we get these clients that we end up hating working with them, but we're all in. Okay, so when I first started, we had this cleanup client that I think it took us 2 years to do the cleanup. And we hated working with them. And had we just done a short diagnostic and at the beginning, we would have known that they were just not the right client for us and they were never going to give us everything we needed. And we could have just let them go. But instead, now we were stuck on a 2-year relationship with this client. Another value of the diagnostic review, getting a scope of work to reduce surprises. Because again, like a doctor doesn't just go in and do an operation without diagnosing you. A mechanic doesn't just go in and start pulling out parts from your car engine without doing a diagnostic. And so we need to do the same thing. We need to view ourselves as a doctor or a mechanic or someone else that they need to diagnose things first. We'll give the client a recommendation of services, which places us in a more advisory role and also really increases our value to the client. Doing a diagnostic review also puts you in control because you're the one who now determines what's wrong with the books instead of the client telling you just reconcile and clean it up a little bit, because that's what they're going to tell you. Reconcile it and clean up the chart of accounts. What does that mean? They don't even know what that means. And so, again, it puts you in control. And the diagnostic review lowers the risk to the client because now they're also engaging you for a short project And so then they can see what it's like to work with you. It lowers their risk and again increases the value of working with you. So how do we price the diagnostic review? Because we said we need to charge for it. I'm going to give you a couple of options, but really don't overthink this. In the beginning, just pick a price, okay? And just I'll tell you how to offer the diagnostic review, but I don't want you to overthink this too much. Pick a price that you will charge for the diagnostic review, and then as you get more experience, and then change your pricing. But I'll give you two options. So on the left, we have pricing based on revenues. So for example, if they have revenues up to $500,000, you could charge $300 to $500. And again, if you're comfortable charging $100, go ahead and charge it, okay? But charge something, all right? So if the client has revenues of $500,000 to $1 million, you could charge $500 to $750, and then over $1 million, $950. For your second option, price the diagnostic review based on the number of months being reviewed. So for example, up to 5 months, $500, up to 9 months, $700, up to 12 months, $900. Again, charge whatever you like, just charge for the diagnostic review. And don't overthink it. This is the key to this process is do not overthink the pricing. Don't worry about how many hours is it going to take, because this process is part of a greater sales process and sales conversation. And so we're not trying to get rich from the diagnostic review. We're because there's a strategy to doing the diagnostic review, but we need to charge for it. So here is the selling process. How do we sell? And I know selling kind of scares us, I'm going to use that word, the selling process. How do we sell this diagnostic review? So first of all, you need to get your prospective client on a discovery call to learn, to talk to them and learn about their needs. Okay, so we can't offer the diagnostic review if we never talk to the prospective client, or if they're just sending an email, how much do you charge? And you tell them, I charge $50 an hour. It doesn't work. Okay, so you need to get them on a discovery call to talk to them, get to know a little bit about them. And usually I will ask them to, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you reached out to me today. Okay. It's very simple. We don't have to be these pushy salespeople. So when I then say, tell me why you reached out to me today, that is when the confession starts, okay? And this is the most important. You need to take notes, because most of the time they're going to tell you exactly what they think is wrong, all the aches, the pains, all the anxieties they have about their bookkeeping. And I used to ignore it because I thought, they tell me this every single time. I'm just so tired of hearing it. Like, don't tell me anymore. And then I realized this is where the value is. This is the key. Okay. So we're going to listen for the client's pain points. Most of the time, your cleanup clients are going to tell you that, my books are messed up. I tried to do my own books, but I'm not sure if my books are right. I synced QuickBooks to, whatever app, and now my books are messed up. My last accountant or bookkeeper messed up my books. The bank balance in QuickBooks does not equal my bank balance. My employee has been doing the books. I need someone to check them. I have, hundreds of items in undeposited funds. I have uncategorized expenses. I have uncategorized income. I'm sure there's lots of things you have heard about. And if there are other things that you've heard from prospective clients, put that in the chat so you can share that with everyone else. But again, listen to those pain points. So let me know in the chat, what have you heard from your prospective clients in terms of those pain points that they have? So here's the magic of how do we then sell this diagnostic review? How do we offer the diagnostic review? Okay. So the client is going to give you and tell you about all the pain points. And after you have listened and again, take some notes, you start out with, here is what I recommend. Okay, so notice how it's very low pressure. We're not forcing people to like, oh no, you got to buy this. So like, we have a special today. It's just, here is what I recommend. Now, keep in mind the word recommend, that it's really putting you in the position of you're an advisor. Again, not a salesy person. I think it elevates your position with the client and how they view you, because now you're giving them a recommendation. So here it goes. I recommend doing a paid diagnostic review of your books so that I can get a clear picture of what's wrong with your books. At the end of my review, I will go over my findings with you. I will also give you upfront pricing for my services. The pricing for the diagnostic review is, so whatever it is, let's say $300, the pricing for the diagnostic review is $300. Okay? So and I love what Macklin says. When you say, here's what I recommend, it puts you in a position of authority. I'm going to steal that. That sounds really great. Yes. And let's see. Chris says, the clients that come to you, I'm behind in my books by 3 or 4 years. Annie says, undeposited funds, has been an issue. Aggie said, I've never reconciled my checking account. It's another. Holly says I do my books myself and procrastinate, and then I do it all before tax time and it's all wrong. Yep. Have seen that, heard it. Chris says, I've heard them say that they just got too busy, so that's why they're years behind. And so Jenny says she likes the suggestions. All right. So again, in that sales conversation, it's just such a short little script. I want you to grab this from the handout, screenshot, whatever you need to do, and practice. I want you to practice saying this in the mirror and take out all the emotion. Okay. We worry about, oh my gosh, what are they going to say? And is it going to be too much money? We have to, what I've learned is in the sales type conversation, especially when we talk about money, we need to remove all emotion because we're just talking about a number. Okay. Do not project your emotion about, is it too much, not enough? You just say it. Okay. So make sure that you have this script, that you come up with a price for your diagnostic review, and even put a little sticky by your laptop or computer so that, when you're talking to that prospective client, this is what you will say. And believe me, after you say it a few times, and I've said it hundreds of times, it just it's just going to roll off your tongue. But remember, it starts with, I recommend. Okay. All right. Most of the time you're going to be asked by your prospective client, or they will say like, well, I'm okay with paying for the diagnostic review. That sounds great. How much will you charge for the cleanup? Okay, so this is what I say. I don't know exactly what the pricing will be for the cleanup until I complete the paid diagnostic review, but clients your size normally pay X to Y for cleanup. So maybe let's say if it's for a year, and a lot of your clients maybe pay, let's say, I'm just going to say $5,000 for a cleanup for a year. Then you would say, but clients your size normally pay $3,000 to $5,000 for a cleanup. Okay. So that gives them an idea of the price point. If you, do we have any Say Yes to the Dress fans? Because I watch a lot of Say Yes to the Dress on YouTube, and they always ask about price point. So this way now we're giving the client a certain range of what that price point is so that they can know whether, like, wait, that's a lot. Like, no, that's too much. Thank you. I don't think I can work with you versus, that sounds reasonable. So again, another little script that you need to memorize. So what happens when you go through this selling process? You have a pre-qualified client. You have pre-qualified them. They show that they value your proposed services, so they value the fact that you will do a diagnostic review and really find out what's wrong with their books. They demonstrate that they're willing and able to pay for your service. And sorry, the word service got cut off there. And they show that they are willing to let you control the process. So if you have a client now who values what you do, who's willing and able to pay for your services and willing to let you be in control of the process, to me, that is a premium client. And so I would rather, instead of like, let me do a free diagnostic and let me do all this and spend all these hours to then find out they don't want to work with me. That is a lot of wasted time on my end. And so when you go through the process of the diagnostic review and follow the structure that I've given you and the scripts that I've given you, then again, the end result is a premium client. And would you rather spend just a little bit of time working with people who would be your ideal client rather than wasting hours and hours of them to only find out that they can't even afford your services? So how do we do this diagnostic review? So let's go over some of the essentials of performing the diagnostic review. We're going to request information from the client. We're going to ask for accountants' access to their QuickBooks Online. We're going to request their business bank and credit card statements for the periods being reviewed. And we're going to also ask for a copy of the last corporate tax return. In the US, that would be for an S corporation, C corporation, or a partnership. Now, you may be asking, well, how do I know which years I need tax returns for? How many months or years do I need bank statements for? So usually what I find out is, when was the last time that you filed a tax return? So if they tell me, let's say it was 2022, okay, they're way behind. So 2022 is the last time that I filed a tax return. Then I'm going to request everything for 2023 and 2024. So essentially all the documents from after they filed their tax return. So if they last filed in 2023 or for the year 2023, then I will request their business bank and credit card statements for 2024, for example. And the same way, when was the last tax return that you filed? I just need the very last tax return. I don't need other tax returns. So it's not a big ask for the types of things that you need from this client. And also, if you get those clients that then they're not giving you what you need and you only ask for 3 things, now you know what, they're not going to be a good fit for me to continue working with. So when we're performing the diagnostic review, the best thing that we can do is to have a checklist. And this way we can make sure that we go through all of the different areas that we need to cover. On your checklist, or on the checklist that I created for myself, it included doing a tax return reconciliation for the balance sheet, reviewing bank accounts, and we'll go over an example for that, reviewing undeposited funds, reviewing the profit and loss accounts, the balance sheet accounts, going over accounts receivable and accounts payable agings, reviewing the chart of accounts and the products and services list, reviewing payroll, inventory, and sales taxes, depending on whether or not they have those areas on the books. So as you can see, it's very comprehensive. So it's not just like, when the client just says, take a look at the chart of accounts and reconcile, because there's a lot of things that we need to review to make sure that the client's books are clean. Here's an example of reviewing the bank accounts and some of the things that I started reviewing for. And as I said, then created a system for doing it so that I would do it the same way. My team members would do it the same way. So you will list the bank and credit card accounts. You will look up the last date that the accounts were reconciled. Then you will, and I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, and I kind of doubt it, so I'm just going to kind of talk you through where I am. So I'm on the third column where it says, are there old and cleared items that are more than 30 days old? So this is one of those big problems that we see in QuickBooks, that you might do the reconciliation, but you still have tons and sometimes hundreds of old uncleared transactions, which means your account is really not reconciled. So we're looking for that. For the fourth column, we're looking at whether there are any auto adjustments or changes to the bank reconciliations. That means that someone went in and changed a transaction that was already reconciled, or they may have also deleted a transaction that was already reconciled. So as you can see in the case of Statewide Bank, the reconciliation opening balance had a difference of $38,000. So someone went in and changed that reconciliation. On the fifth column, we're going to make sure that the accounts are connected to the bank feeds. And on the last column, we will also look to see if there are old transactions in the bank feeds window that maybe they haven't worked through. So as I said, we'll do that for the bank accounts and credit card accounts. And then at the bottom of our checklist, we have findings and recommendations. And here's where we will just do a quick write-up of what we found and the things that we recommend that for the client. And our recommendations will go on a report that we're going to put together for our client. So how do we check some of these things? Where do we go to see, like, is there an opening balance difference in the bank reconciliation? Well, when you go to reconcile the account, and if the opening balance has changed, you'll see an error message, as you can see here at the top, where it says your account isn't ready to reconcile yet. And it tells you that your beginning balance is off by $38,541. So now we know, okay, we have a problem, because when your opening balance changes in QuickBooks, you can't reconcile the account anymore. And usually clients don't know how to troubleshoot that. How do we know if we have old uncleared transactions? Well, we're going to open up a reconciliation report in QuickBooks, and we're going to go to the section that says uncleared checks and payments. And then you're going to look at what are the old uncleared transactions. In this particular case, this client last reconciled as of September 30th of 2023. But when we look at their old uncleared checks and payments, they go back to 2021. So we have a lot of transactions that need to be cleaned up. They may also have uncleared deposits. So we would want to check for that as well. Here's an example of my diagnostic review checklist for the expenses section. And these are excerpts. I'll talk more about how you can get access to the full diagnostic review checklist at the end of our webinar. But so for expenses, we're looking at maybe expenses that are higher than expected, lower than expected. So for example, for transactions or expenses that are higher than expected, we have rent expense with looks like $69,000, and that there's a payment that we need to look in to see, is that really correct or not? We need to look into it. Fourth down on the checklist here, are there any uncategorized expenses? That is an error that we see very often in our clients' books when we do cleanups, is uncategorized expenses, because they just go in the bank feed and add everything without worrying about categorizing it. Are there any expenses in Ask My Accountant? Are there any expenses in Reconciliation Discrepancy? That's another account that people kind of plug things in there when bank reconciliations don't balance, and you're not supposed to have something there. And let's see, towards the bottom, any expenses that should be recorded as owner draws or similar equity accounts or any personal expenses, etc. So you get the idea that we need a checklist that where we can go through and look for all the different things that could be wrong with the books. And as I said, I put it all together by myself. And after doing several hundred cleanups, really perfected the checklist. But you could put one together yourself, or as I said, I'll show you how you can get access to my full checklist. So how do we look for some of these errors on the expenses? So as you can see, for advertising expense, we have $180,000 in expense. So we need to drill down and look at what is in that account to then figure out what is driving this advertising expense to be so high. We have transactions in Ask My Accountant that should not be there. We have bad debt expense and bad debt -1 for whatever reason, those that we should only have one bad debt expense. We have rent expense that's unusually high, so we need to look into that. We have uncategorized expenses, and we have reconciliation discrepancies. So as you can see, the financials tell us a lot about what's going on if we learn to look for some of these things, some of the red flags, and learn to diagnose these problems. So how else can you learn how to diagnose all of these different areas in QuickBooks? Well, I have several videos for you on my YouTube playlist called QuickBooks Online Cleanup and Diagnosis. So make sure that you make a note of this link or take or scan it with your phone. It will also be on your handout so that you can go through the different videos and learn more about diagnosing all of these different problems in QuickBooks. And all of those videos are free, by the way. So it'll go deeper into a lot of the different areas, balance sheet, profit and loss, and go account by account showing you that. So after we perform the diagnostic review, then we're going to put together the report of findings and recommendations for the client. And this is the deliverable that we're going to give our clients. So there's value in the report of findings and recommendations. It's a professional report. It positions you as a professional, as an advisor, as someone with authority, as was said earlier. It helps to communicate your value and really shows that you have your stuff together. Because there's a difference between sending a client just an email like, here you go, versus an actual report, which again, I consider a deliverable. So we're not just going to send the client the report, because this is, again, part of the strategy. We need to get the client on a call. We're not going to give them the report of findings until we get them on the call so that they don't go through and decide, oh, I can do all this myself. So we're going to go over the report with the client over Zoom. We're going to, as I said, go through the report step by step. We're going to show them. So if I said that, hey, you have undeposited funds and blah, 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 or uncategorized transactions of $50,000, then I'm also have QuickBooks in a different tab, and I will go and show them, here you go. Or we have unapplied cash payment income of this amount, and then I will go show them. Okay, so it's rubbing salt in the wound, and it's decided to, because not only do they have the problems that they perceive that they have, but now you will likely have found lots of other problems they didn't even know they had. By going over the report with the client, you'll be able to give your client pricing for the cleanup. And the meeting normally will last 45 minutes to an hour by the time you show them everything and then go over your recommended service. Here's an example of a sample report of findings and recommendations with some excerpts of some of the areas that go on the report of findings. So first of all, you'll have a cover sheet, a cover page with the client's name. In this case, it's Modern Global, report of findings and recommendations. It'll have your logo, again, very professional. It'll tell them it's a diagnostic review, the periods in which you're reviewing. And in this case, the review of the undeposited funds account. The purpose of the review. Why is it important for us to make sure that you don't have old old undeposited funds in your QuickBooks? You'll go over your findings. In this case, there are 60 old transactions totaling $158,000, ranging from December of 2021 to December of 2023. In this particular case, it's a little bit outdated. I was too lazy to change that to 2024. Sorry, guys. But you get the point that we're then telling the client what we found. We're giving them the number of transactions, the dollar amount. Again, it's rubbing salt in the wound. And the recommendations that we need to review and clean up undeposited funds. And so our findings are coming from our diagnostic report, diagnostic review checklist. And so then we pull those findings and put them on the report of findings and recommendations. Same for our review of the profit and loss, the purpose of the review, the findings. I won't go over into all of them, but I'll do the second one. There are 3 transactions totaling $8,690 in the uncategorized income account that need to be reclassified to the correct income account. Okay. And so you guys have the handouts, or we'll send you the handouts so you'll be able to go through these in more detail. So remember, you're acting as an advisor, showing your client what you found and giving them an expert recommendation of what needs to be cleaned up. So there is value in what we're doing, and that's why we should charge for this service. And it should be a separate standalone project because of the value that we can provide. And also because, again, it takes the client from diagnostic to cleanup to monthly services. So let's go over some cleanup pricing strategies and some ways in which you can price cleanups. Because I see a lot of you asking in my Facebook group and other Facebook groups, how would you price this? I'm going to say a couple of things about pricing, first of all. Is your pricing too high? Yes. Is your pricing too low? Yes. Okay. So you're never going to have the right price for a service that you provide, because there will always be someone who charges more than you, and there will always be someone who charges less than you. If you feel like you're not charging enough, then charge more the next time. In the 15 years that I had my bookkeeping business, I charged more every single year for every service. So as I said, I think I might have started charging like $150 or $300 for a diagnostic review. And when the prospective client seemed so willing to pay that, I thought, you know what, I think I need to increase it. So let me go to $400. And then later, well, let me go to $500. And really by the end, because we had a niche by then, when we really had our systems and processes really dialed in, I don't know if that's the right word to say, really figured out, we were charging up to $2,500 for a diagnostic review. So it's a journey. Okay, so don't worry so much about, am I charging too much or not enough? Charge more. Okay, if you think you're not charging enough, charge more. But there are methods for pricing a cleanup. One would be by the hour, but there's a risk that you won't get paid, because as I said before, you could put in all these hours and then not get paid what you should, because there was not enough communication with the client on what you were going to charge, and their expectation may have been that, hey, how long could it take? Maybe it's going to just be $500 when really you are charging them $5,000. Big disconnect. The second option or method is to give the client a fixed price for your cleanup. I did that for several years. There is a risk that you will undercharge. And as much as you try to do your very best in a diagnostic review, there's always that, 10 to 20% chance that you missed something during the diagnostic review. And so what I did was I changed to giving the client a price range because that lowered the risk. So let's go over how that might look. But actually, before we do that, again, about our attitude about pricing. Many of you just focus on the volume of transactions that you're cleaning up, the number of bank accounts, the number of old items and undeposited funds, old AR, old AP, the number of hours it will take. You want to give the client a fair price. And so we way overthink these things, okay? But ultimately, you need to consider, why does the client need a cleanup? Maybe they haven't filed their taxes in 3 years and they got a letter from the IRS. Maybe they want to sell their business and they don't have financials. Maybe they want to borrow money and they don't have financials. So why is it important for them to have their books cleaned up? What is the time frame? When do they need this cleanup? What is the size of their business? Because pricing really should be different for someone that maybe they have $200,000 in annual revenues versus $2 million in annual revenues. In my opinion, pricing should be different for those two companies. Your ability to solve their problems. Are you the one who can fix the problem? No one else can. And I had a client once that it took me, I think, an hour to fix their problem, but I charged $2,500 because I was the only one who could fix it, because they had gone to all these other people who couldn't fix it. I knew that it didn't matter how long it would take. I knew the solution to their problem. If you have a niche, your niche is a factor in pricing. You may want to charge more. And certainly Mavency, as we developed our e-commerce niche, we started charging more. The number of months or years being cleaned up is a factor. The complexity of what you're doing is a factor. And lastly, the volume of transactions and accounts is a factor, but it's not the first factor. So keep that in mind. I'm going to skip this because I feel like I already said it. Okay. Other than the value that you provide is also in removing the negative emotions that the client is experiencing and going back to those pain points that they were telling you about. So what are the methods for pricing when we're giving the client a range? One is just to estimate what you would charge them for monthly bookkeeping, multiply it by the number of months to come up with your cleanup pricing. So again, don't overthink it. I'll learn to not overthink my pricing. So let's say if you were to charge them $500 a month for cleaning up 12 months is $6,000. Some people mark up the cleanup. Some people mark it down a little bit. So let's just say that we marked it down by 75% because we're more efficient in doing a cleanup for multiple months. Okay. So let's say that would come out to $4,500. So then what I would tell the client is the pricing will range from $4,000 to $5,500. So I'm giving myself some wiggle room there. This is a faster method of pricing. Versus method B, to estimate the number of hours times your hourly rate. Okay. But, you have to get good at estimating number of hours. I happen to be good at it just because I had an auditing background and all we did was estimate hours. But you may not be very good at that. But this is another option. So let's say that you had estimated 24 hours of cleanup times $100 an hour. That's $2,400. And then we're going to add 20% just for administrative time into all of our dealings back and forth with the client. That comes out to $2,880. And so in this case, we would tell the client that the pricing will range from $2,900 to $3,500. But again, it's very dependent on your ability to estimate hours. Regardless of the method that you choose, you should always get paid upfront. So collect a 50% deposit for your cleanup, or if you're going to go the hourly route, get a minimum number of hours times your hourly rate. I know some bookkeepers that charge in 10-hour increments, So they get paid upfront for 10 hours to the cleanup, and then they tell the client, okay, I've used up the 10 hours, I need 10 more hours. Not a huge fan of charging by the hour, but sometimes when you start out, that may be a more comfortable place for you to start. But ultimately, my preferred method is method A, to calculate the monthly amount that I would charge for the bookkeeping times the number of months. And again, it's pretty much a no-brainer. You're not overthinking your pricing at that point. So key takeaways from today. A paid diagnostic review helps you to qualify the client, lowers the risk to the client, and allows you to get a clear scope of work. You position yourself as a specialist by diagnosing your client's books and recommending services. You give the client a price range to allow for surprises. And regardless of how much you charge for a cleanup, always get paid for at least 50% of your fees upfront. Here are some resources for you. My YouTube channel, if you go to 5mbvideo.com, that'll take you to my YouTube channel, my YouTube playlist that I already told you about on QuickBooks Online Cleanup and Diagnosis, 5MB Academy, where you can find free and paid resources, and where I empower you to become a confident bookkeeper. And you can sign up to be notified about my latest content, webinars, and courses by following the link or scanning the QR code. And I believe Jill may be sharing some of those things with you. All right. So before we go to Q&A, I wanted to quickly go over 5MB Academy, where I empower virtual bookkeepers to be confident through learning, education, and really ultimately helping you to build the bookkeeping business and life of your dreams. And I feel like I'm living the dream now. And so who better to help you in that journey than someone who's been there and done that? And believe me, I've been there and done that. And especially when it came to cleanups, I had, as I said, worked on hundreds of cleanups. I developed a proven system for diagnosing and cleaning up the books, and that led to profitable and organized cleanups, and really having a system and a process for doing things that ultimately, through all of the systems and all the processes that I developed in my business, helped me to then build a business that I could sell to my employees. So here are 3 courses that I would like for you to be aware of that are on 5MB Academy. There are other courses, but we are highlighting the QBO Paid Diagnostic Review System and the Cleanup course this month. So first of all, how do you get the full the diagnostic review checklist, the report of findings and recommendations, all of the tutorials of how to do the diagnostic review? So all the entire step-by-step system for doing and selling paid diagnostic reviews, well, that is all available to you in the QBO Paid Diagnostic Review System. So this is a paid online course. You have unlimited access, so you can start at your leisure. It's video-based, so do it on your own time. And again, has the all of the tutorials, checklist, examples, and everything is included. So we're giving you a link to that course so you can learn more about it. And actually, after I created the paid diagnostic review system, then my students asked me, well, can you show us how to do the cleanups? So then I put together another course, and that is the complete QBO cleanup system. So in this course, and again, a paid course, this includes my full system and training showing you everything you need to conquer cleanups with confidence. Because it's one thing to diagnose them, the other is to do a cleanup, know the steps in which you need to work, know how to get started. How do you know when you're done with a cleanup? How do you stay organized when you're doing a cleanup? Cleanup checklist, tutorials for how to go in and clean things up. So that is all included in the complete QBO cleanup system. Again, unlimited access to the course. You can do it at any time. It's all video based. And we put together a bundle of the 2 courses to give you the best price. And actually, the bundle is our best-selling course bundle, just because most people, they will buy the 2 courses, because by the time you get the bundle and the discount that I'm about to share with you, you're almost getting one of the courses free. So I wanted to share with you a 15% discount. So use coupon code CLEAN with 5 and B in the checkout page. And Jill has shared that link with you and discount code. She pinned that to our chat, so you can find it there. So the sale has started and it ends on Monday, January 27th. So if you need to think about it, no big deal. If this isn't the right time, we'll have a sale later. I certainly don't want to be a pushy salesperson, because I hate that. But if this is the right time, and this is really the time when we're doing some big cleanups, then you may want to purchase one of the courses or the bundle. Or if you just wanted to start out with one of the courses and then you want to upgrade to the bundle, you can contact us and we will upgrade you to a bundle and honor the bundle price and the 15% discount. So there you go. So I'm going to leave that up for just a moment, and I'm going to switch to the Q&A to go over some Q&A for about 15 minutes. And give me 1 second so I can share that screen. Share screen. Great. All right. So question from Jennifer. Do you ask about their revenue before or during the first call? Or how do you know how to base my pricing based on their revenues? That's a great question. So yes, every prospective client, if they're going to book a discovery call with me, would have to first go through and fill out just a quick questionnaire about revenue size, what they do, what they need help with, and that way I would get that information ahead of time. Sorry, I get distracted a little bit because I'm thinking, do I want to go deeper into that? I think I'm going to leave it there so I can answer more questions. But yeah, so I'm now using TidyCal for my my online calendar for clients to book appointments with me. And it's just, I think it's $39 lifetime. And you can have your client then answer some questions. So TidyCal is if you don't have an online booking system yet. Let's see. Jennifer's asking, do you apply any portion of the diagnostic review payment to the ongoing services? So I don't. And the reason is just because I feel like there's value already in the diagnostic review, but that doesn't mean you couldn't, because there are a lot of people who do that. They'll apply like 50% of the diagnostic to the next service, or you know what, if you need to incentivize a client to become your recurring client, do what you need to do. Okay. But I used to not do that, but it's certainly an option. Holly's asking, is the diagnostic review something you recommend for all new bookkeeping clients, not just cleanups? So the exact method that I teach is for diagnostic reviews of clients who have done some bookkeeping. If they were new and didn't have any bookkeeping, I would still charge some sort of bookkeeping needs analysis. I don't teach that right now. It's on my list. Like someday I want to do a course or something on the bookkeeping needs analysis, but I don't have it yet. But I would certainly come up with a process for just analyzing, what does the client have? Maybe they have an Excel sheet. Maybe they have a bank statement. They have nothing. You have to assess their needs and really even come up with what is their chart of accounts going to look like. So there's value in that, and you need to charge for that. but I would not call it a diagnostic review because we're not diagnosing something that is wrong, because there's nothing wrong because they don't have books yet. Wendy's asking, with e-commerce, do you find that there are a lot of cleanups and catch-ups? Are they easier or harder? And do we recommend starting over? So for e-commerce, actually, we ended up starting a lot of clients over just because they were trying to connect their QuickBooks to some, like let's say with Shopify, through some app that just dumped a whole bunch of data into QuickBooks. And once they did it, they just completely stopped doing any bookkeeping. So it was easier for us to get rid of that QuickBooks, as it really didn't have a whole lot other than all the data dump, and just start them over using A2X. So yeah, for e-commerce, in that case, as I said, it was easier to start them over, although I'm not necessarily a proponent of starting a client over. Annie is asking, what if the client is an LLC and they are a small company and not a large company? Did we just ask for their Schedule C? There's no need to ask for the Schedule C because it doesn't have a balance sheet. So the reason we ask for the previous tax return for S Corp, C Corp, and partnerships is because more than likely there will be a balance sheet on that tax return. And that way we can then reconcile to the balance sheet on the tax return. Talal is asking, is it important to have a niche? I think it depends on where you are in your business. I think we should all strive to work toward a niche at some point. I don't think it's important to have a niche when you start out. And in fact, it took probably 11 years before Maven C had a true niche. I think our niche before was QuickBooks Online for service-based companies, which is, it's sort of a niche, but like to actually say Maven C works with Shopify clients who use QuickBooks, who use A2X. Okay, so it's a very, very small niche that took a few years to get to that point. Yasmin is asking, how do you get a full scope of work? I think, and by going through the diagnostic review and assessing all of the areas that I said, when like you need a checklist and you need to go through all these areas, that is certainly going to get you there about 90% of what you need to diagnose to then be able to assess when we're saying a scope of work, of like all the things that we need to do to clean up the books. Tang is asking, is that process includes some kind of advisory? So I'm not sure which process you're referring to, like in maybe the diagnostic or presenting the diagnostic review findings or recommendations. I consider it a type of advisory work, but I'm not sure what you mean by advisory. So maybe you want to ask me again and give me more details. Wendy's asking, what if they already have someone using the QBO accountant's view? What would you do? Typically, I believe now you have at least 2 seats for to add accountants, but most clients, if maybe they're using Simple Start and maybe they can only have 1 accountant, they'll just remove the other person and add you temporarily. We wouldn't review QuickBooks unless we had accountants access. We never wanted to be added as users. We don't have the same capabilities really within QuickBooks to do that. Chris is asking, what are the pros and cons of doing a 2024 cleanup first and starting previous years? You cannot do that. You cannot clean up the current year and then go back. There are a couple of reasons. One is you cannot reconcile a bank account like now without having reconciled prior years because your balances are cumulative. And then same with your balance sheet. The balance sheet is cumulative. So you cannot clean up now and then clean up and go back because your balances are cumulative. Christy is asking, for a business that has only used Excel sheets for their bookkeeping, but now want to start using QuickBooks, When I need to enter everything in QuickBooks for their previous years in business, or just start with that current year, I will start them with whatever year they need a tax return for. So if, for example, they filed a tax return for 2023, but they haven't filed the tax return for 2024, then I would do their QuickBooks for 2024. Or if the client did not want to pay for 2024 and just wants to start clean in 2025, then I would do 2025 and starting this month and continue. Quintanilla is asking, for new and inquiring clients, are you meeting with them on a quick 15 or 30-minute call to discuss their needs? Is this the discovery call? Yes. I would meet with them for 30 minutes, actually. 15 minutes, in my opinion, is not enough to really get into those pain points and then be able to recommend the service. So that is the discovery call. Some people call it a free consultation, but I don't like the word consultation because then it seems like I'm going to give them free services or free advice, which I would not. Janine is saying or asking, so we are distinguishing between pricing the diagnostic and the cleanup. Yes, they are two separate projects. So we recommend the diagnostic review first. We do the diagnostic, we present the report of findings, and then we recommend a cleanup. Christina is asking, how much time in hours or weeks do you tell them it will take for the cleanup? Okay, so for a cleanup, and keeping in mind that I had a team of six employees, and the employees are working on monthly work as well. So we had to fit in the cleanups at the time that we weren't working on other clients. So for our purposes, we would tell them 6 weeks. If they really had a rush, we would tell them 4 weeks and then charge more to do that rush. So that gave us plenty of time then to be able to work on regular client work and then work on the cleanups. And by the time the countdown, the 6-week countdown or 4-week countdown or whatever it is, starts from when we receive everything from the client. So if it took them 2 weeks to give us everything we need, then we count down from after 2 weeks, then 6 more weeks. Macklin is asking, how do you justify your services if your prospects, already have an accountant? I tried telling them I will be less expensive than an accountant. I think that, okay, and I could probably go on for a whole hour about this. You cannot compete based on pricing, because pricing is like, no, if someone, you could find someone that thinks they should pay you $250 to clean up the full year, and they might even think that's too much money. And so we cannot compete on pricing, because there will always be somebody who can charge them less money. And that is not a sustainable way to run a business, which, we're all running our own businesses here. So in order to then, how do you stand? I think that really you need to rethink that question. How do you stand out from your competition so that you will attract clients who want to pay more for your services? Okay, so don't think about how do I attract clients who can pay less. How do I distinguish myself so I can attract clients who want to pay more? Okay, so for example, you can go to Walmart and buy a $4 t-shirt, and there are many hundreds of people who want that $4 t-shirt that's going to maybe last 3 months. They'll throw it away and buy another one. But there are people who want to go to Nordstrom and buy a very upscale, beautiful $90 white t-shirt that may last them for years and feel soft and be wonderful on their skin. And so and maybe only 5 people want to buy that t-shirt, but you don't have to sell hundreds of t-shirts. You only need to sell 5. Okay, so think of it that way. But so how do we then stand out? There are many things: your branding, your service packages, a niche, a specialization, talking directly to that prospective client in your marketing to really show that you understand and care about them. Really showing them even a little bit about you. I have a course called Marketing System for Introverted Bookkeepers that really gets into all of that, the whole branding and how you present yourself, and so that you can stand out. Hillary's asking, how does the course show the actual documents and formatting used to give to the client? Yes. So it has the report of findings and recommendations. It's on Word. So it's pre-formatted for you. So you just copy and paste onto the report. So it's very easy. You don't have to figure it out yourself. Susie's asking, as a CPA, how do you deal with the implications of using the word review? Is this addressed in your engagement letter? That's a great question. And because I'm using the terminology diagnostic review, we used to call it a data review. You can call it anything you want, really, Susie. If you do not want to use the word review at all, there are some other wording phrases and names that I give in the course for how you can call the report, and ChatGPT can help you do the same to come up with something else. So don't let that hang you up if you don't want to use that word. I totally hear you. But I was comfortable as a CPA using the word or the phrase diagnostic review. Jody's asking 50% upfront deposit. When do you collect the second half? We would collect it near completion. So that was in our engagement letter, it was near completion, so that if they did not want to pay us right then and there, we did not finish the cleanup technically. So Hannah's asking, have you ever charged to fix a few things like loans to show the breakdown of principal and interest, or clean the chart of accounts, etc.? So done a partial cleanup. We have done it for e-commerce clients, or we have cleaned up their e-commerce accounting piece. I'm not always comfortable doing that with other types of clients that it just would depend on why they would want that. And, if they were going to go to a bank or something and then say like, oh, Hannah's my bookkeeper, but Hannah only cleaned up this much and everything else is a mess. I think that's a personal preference. But yes, we have done that. Ma'aid is asking, are there any tasks that you don't do that you leave for the accountant to handle? Not a whole lot, just because of my approach to cleaning up and my experience as an accountant CPA, that in my course, I really teach you to go through everything that you will need to do to actually hand the accountant a clean set of books. The only things that I will not get into it would be like partnership accounting, or some more like intercompany transactions and things that I felt like, okay, we're not the CPA. The CPA needs to get involved with that. And let's see. Let me see how many more questions we have. Okay. I'm going to answer the last few questions. If you need to leave, you may do so, but because I'm here, I will finish answering these. Rachel, do you have a contract with the client for the diagnostic review? Yes. And the contract or engagement letter is included in the diagnostic review course. For the cleanup, there's also an engagement letter that is also included in the cleanup course. DWAS is asking, I have completed the bookkeeping course and I have pro-advisor certification, but I do not have any work experience, still kind of lost this how to start. Will this cleanup and diagnostic review bundle help me get started? I'm going to say no. I think that if you don't have clients in and you're still in that process, I don't want you to spend more money to do this. I want you to focus on finding clients. Now, if you find, I do have students who they find that cleanup client, they get paid for the diagnostic, and then they buy the course. Okay, and then they go through the course and then do the cleanup. But I wouldn't spend the money now. Lewis is asking, so if there's no balance sheet to reconcile to, how do we know if the balance sheet accounts are accurate or not? I think you have to use your judgment in that case and review them. A lot of things most of the time, there won't be much of a balance sheet, just because, there may be like accounts receivable, accounts payable, credit card liability. There's not going to be a lot of other assets or liabilities. But if there are, you have to use your best judgment to clean them up. Marby says some Shopify sellers' problem is their inventory and COGS. How do you diagnose this? Because it's very complex. That is not included in my courses because it is very complex and very niche. And the courses are they're general courses. So there are some videos that you can watch on the Maven C YouTube channel that kind of get into inventory and cost of goods sold. But I can't get into that now because I will spend hours talking about it. Maya was asking if there are any transactions lingering from previous years, but they already submitted tax returns for those years. Do you leave them? It depends on the type of entity, and it depends on the reconciliation to the balance sheet, and I cover that in the course. Wendy's asking, how long does it normally take to do a diagnostic review? The client asks for a time frame. So for you to do the diagnostic, 3 to 5 hours. For me to tell the client, my turnaround would be a week to 2 weeks if I'm really busy. Macklin is asking, I'm a bookkeeper, not a CPA. Have you found that the perceived value of our work to the clients is less or not coming from enough from a CPA? Actually, that's a great question. And I think that you maybe have asked me a related question that you maybe perceive your value to be less than a CPA. Naturally, as bookkeepers, our value is higher if we make ourselves available to that client, because CPAs, usually if it's the tax professional, they only will talk to you like once, maybe twice a year. They don't want to be bothered with like the client calling them all the time. They really don't want to do any cleanup. They just want to do the tax return. So if you then position yourself as, I'm the go-to person, I'm going to take care of your books, they're going to be tax ready, so your CPA is really happy, then your value increases. So don't underestimate your ability or your value based on what a CPA can and cannot do, because a lot of CPAs are just too busy and don't want to deal with the day-to-day. Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for, let me see, my bad. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today. Lots of great questions, lots of things that now is getting me thinking about future webinars. But keep following me on social media, sign up for my newsletter, follow me on YouTube, take advantage of all of the free content on YouTube and on 5MB Academy. We're going to continue producing more content on cleanups right now, because this is the season for cleanups. And you're bound to come across a cleanup. Okay. So, and then make sure if you have any other questions, go to my my Facebook group, 5-Minute Bookkeeping Community, to ask any questions. I will be there waiting for your questions. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.